Thank you for listening to Stories at Pink Meow Meow Audio. Hope you enjoy the story. I never thought that one day I would wear a wedding dress instead of my sister. I didn't expect the person standing at the end of the aisle that day to look at me as if he had been waiting for me all his life. My sister disappeared 3 days before the wedding, without a word, without news, without a trace, leaving only a shaky handwritten note with a short sentence, "I will help you this time." He was never the one she wanted. No one asked my opinion, nor did anyone need an answer from me. They just looked at me, who looked 8 parts like her, and quickly nodded, "Okay, a little editing is fine." I was silent. I'm used to being the backup plan. He is the one who always stands behind her in every family photo, be the one who gets ignored at parties, compared at meetings, be the one who should be grateful to be chosen. So when they told me to change temporarily, I just nodded slightly. Wedding dress was ordered in one afternoon. Makeup artist, hair artist, everything is perfect, but my heart is empty. Sitting in the waiting room before the wedding, I looked in the mirror, looking at the bride in it. Not me, not you, not anyone. "Is the bride ready?" A voice rang out softly but firmly. I nodded slightly, pulling down my handkerchief. The door opened, music played. The gentle scent of flowers mixed with the sparkling light of the chandelier made everything seem dreamy. I walked up the red carpet, past the curious eyes, past the wordless whispers, and finally came before him. That man, Ton Dick Thom, is known as the crown prince of the financial world, the sole heir of the Ton Thee Group, a figure that the business world both respects and fears, cold and distant, and has never been involved in a love scandal. Such a person is standing before me. I looked up to see his eyes, deep and dark like a winter lake that never thawed. I bowed my head to avoid his gaze, but then he spoke. "No need to bow your head." I was stunned. His voice clearly carried no surprise, no anger, no confusion, as if he had known it all along. I raised my head. He looked straight into my eyes and slowly said, "It's not her, right?" I didn't answer, just squeezed his hand tighter. He still wasn't angry, just repeated, "It's not her." Well, I almost panicked. What is this? You don't get angry, you don't break off the engagement, you don't question me, or you don't care? At that time I thought, maybe he just needed someone to stand by his side on paper. A political marriage was just a formality, so I reassured myself, it's okay, just 3 months. 3 months and then divorce. I thought so. The wedding took place as scheduled. No one found out. Or maybe they knew, but no one spoke up. Signing, taking pictures, cutting the wedding cake, all procedures are performed precisely to the second, as if my life was just a pre-scheduled Excel spreadsheet. I didn't eat anything at the party, nor did I talk to anyone. I stood quietly in the corner, watching him raise his glass and smile politely to each guest. He probably can't remember his name, I said to myself. Until the party ended, I went up to my room as the servant guided me. The honeymoon suite was 4 times larger than the one I had stayed in. Everything was delicate, cold, and strange. I was about to go to the bathroom when he pushed the door open and walked in. I reflexively jumped back. He stood there, still looking elegant and leisurely. "Don't worry," he said. "I do not force you to fulfill your marital dues. I kept people not knowing whether to be happy or sad Buddha. We just need to play it right, at least for the next few months. After that, you can have whatever you want." I clenched my hands into fists, my voice soft. "Thank you." He looked at me for a long time and then slowly said, "But you need to know one thing." I looked up. "No matter who you replace, for me, you have never been a replacement." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay on the bed, a world apart, between me and the man beside me. His back was printed on the curtain as he worked with the dim light of the table lamp. I don't understand. I don't understand why he don't question. Don't get angry, don't pursue. I don't understand why he looked at me with such gentle eyes. A look I've never received from anyone in my life. 3 a.m. I gently opened my phone, opened the note, and wrote a single line that I had married my sister. But the man I married never seemed to want to marry my sister. I woke up before dawn. The dim light from the curtains fell on the wall, drawing a long, quiet shadow. He was still sitting there, at the desk in the corner of the room, his vest draped over the back of a chair, a fountain pen in his hand, his head slightly bowed, the soft yellow light covering his straight nose and quiet eyes, like a still life painting that is centered. The man I married by mistake. I don't know whether to speak or lie still. The large room fell silent. The silence was neither uncomfortable nor cozy, like the quiet between two strangers sleeping in the middle of a room. I decided to close my eyes and pretend to sleep again, but then he turned his head slightly. "You are not sleeping yet." I stopped. "You call me baby?" Not her, not the wife on paper, but me. A very light word, but made my heart skip a beat. I sat up, pulled the blanket up to my chest and whispered, "Wake up." He nodded, put down his pen and walked closer to me. I reflexively backed away, my back almost touching the headboard. He frowned slightly. "I did nothing to you." I blushed. "You know." I'm not really sure. This was my first time sleeping with a man in a room, and I didn't know what to do when he was my legal husband in name. He sat silent for a moment and then held out his hand and said, "Follow me." I hesitated for a few seconds, but still took his hand. That hand was unusually warm. He led me out of the room, down a long hallway, and opened the door to a small room. The light is on. I was bewildered. It was another bedroom, smaller, cozier, more gentle. Creamy white, mixed with light brown, soft bedding. On the table there is also a vase of rough linen. "This is my room," he said calmly. "From today you sleep here. I do not force you to fulfill your marital duties. I do not have any meaning to force you. I kept people not knowing whether to be happy or sad. Buddha. We just need to play it right, at least for the next few months. After that, you can have whatever you want." I clenched my hands into fists, my voice soft. "Thank you." He looked at me for a long time and then slowly said, "But you need to know one thing." I looked up. "No matter who you replace, for me, you have never been a replacement." I couldn't sleep that night. I lay on the bed, a world apart, between me and the man beside me. His back was printed on the curtain as he worked with the dim light of the table lamp. I don't understand. I don't understand why he don't question. Don't get angry, don't pursue. I don't understand why he looked at me with such gentle eyes. A look I've never received from anyone in my life. 3 a.m. I gently opened my phone, opened the note, and wrote a single line that I had married my sister. But the man I married never seemed to want to marry my sister. I woke up before dawn. The dim light from the curtains fell on the wall, drawing a long, quiet shadow. He was still sitting there, at the desk in the corner of the room, his vest draped over the back of a chair, a fountain pen in his hand, his head slightly bowed, the soft yellow light covering his straight nose and quiet eyes, like a still life painting that is centered. The man I married by mistake. I don't know whether to speak or lie still. The large room fell silent. The silence was neither uncomfortable nor cozy, like the quiet between two strangers sleeping in the middle of a room. I decided to close my eyes and pretend to sleep again. But then he turned his head slightly. "You are not sleeping yet?" I stopped. "You call me baby?" Not her, not the wife on paper, but me. A very light word, but made my heart skip a beat. I sat up, pulled the blanket up to my chest, and whispered, "Wake up." He nodded, put down his pen, and walked closer to me. I reflexively backed away, my back almost touching the headboard. He frowned slightly. "I didn't do anything to you." I blushed. you know. I'm not really sure. This was my first time sleeping with a man in a room, and I didn't know what to do when he was my legal husband in name. He sat silent for a moment and then held out his hand and said, "Follow me." I hesitated for a few seconds, but still took his hand. That hand was unusually warm. He led me out of the room, down a long hallway, and opened the door to a small room. The light is on, and I was confused. It was another bedroom, smaller, cozier, more gentle. Creamy white in blank, brown soft bedding. On the table there is also a vase of rough linen. "This is my room," he said calmly. "From today you sleep here. I do not force you to fulfill your marital duties. I do not have any meaning to force you. I kept people not knowing whether to be
in a room with both the light scent of dried lavender and sunlight filtering through curtains like a Pinterest illustration. I changed clothes and opened the door. As soon as I reached the hallway, I saw a maid bowing. "Madame is awake. Breakfast is ready downstairs." The young master is also waiting. I stood still for a few seconds. Before my wife could react, the phone rang. Text message from unknown number, "Eat breakfast. If it doesn't suit my taste, I'll change the chef." Brief and calm, but strangely, my heart feels a little sweet. I used to think that living with a stranger, especially a man I had just signed on to be my husband for less than 24 hours, would be an awkward and forced experience. But it turns out that Tan Dick Tam is not an easy person to predict. He is too calm. So calm that people dare not break the silence. On the first morning after the wedding, I walked down to the dining room and saw him already sitting there. Laptop open, cup of coffee in hand, white shirt sleeves rolled up casually. I was about to turn back to my room. I was not mentally prepared for the newlyweds' breakfast. Before he could take a step, he looked up and sat down to eat. His voice is not high, but powerful, the kind of voice that makes people reluctant to disobey. I reluctantly walked over and sat 3 seats away from him, like a student sitting away from his homeroom teacher. A maid gently served the food. Poached eggs, baked toast, grapefruit juice. I glanced at the plate in front of me. This is definitely not the kind of breakfast I'm used to. No porridge, no instant noodles, and certainly no sausage egg bread I usually buy at the corner store. I intended to eat just a few bites and then make an excuse that I was full and go back to my room. But as soon as he picked up the spoon, he put down his coffee cup and said, "If you can't eat these Western dishes, I'll ask for a change of chef." I looked at him, a little confused. "No need, I'm used to it. No need to hold back." He said, still looking at the laptop screen, "This is not the Toe family's house. You don't have to endure it." I gripped the spoon a little tighter. He didn't look at me, but the words hit me right in the gut, right in the softest spot I never thought he would understand, or at least notice. For the next few days, we lived under the same roof, but our schedules were almost at different hours. I go to bed early and wake up early. He goes to bed late and wakes up half an hour later than me, and often stays out until late at night. Sometimes I hear English people talking in the study in English, French, and German. His tone was calm and professional, very much the model of a prince in the financial world that people often talk about on the news. I was sitting in the living room hugging a pillow watching a silent movie when I heard the maid whispering behind my back. The young master has never let anyone sleep in this villa. Except for her, I don't know what that feeling is. Not exactly happy, not sad, like standing on the doorstep. On one side is a strange world. On the other side is the world he is gradually opening up, but has not invited me in yet. A week after the wedding, I received a call from my sister. I looked at the name on the screen for a long time, then finally picked up the phone. "Are you okay?" I squeezed the phone. "What do you think?" There was silence on the other end of the line, and then her voice faded. "I'm sorry." I smiled faintly. How many times was this? I am not the type of person who demands fairness. But when I was pushed into the wedding, became a substitute bride, and lived in a house like a real wife, I started to feel funny. "Are you still going to come back?" My sister replied very softly. She just wanted to know if Tan Dick Tham found out. I froze. Not only did he find out, he told me I was the one. But I didn't tell her that. I only replied with one sentence. He knows. But he chose to remain silent, probably because he didn't care who the bride was. I don't know why I lied. I just didn't want my sister to know that somehow that man had started to make my heart waver. That evening, I saw Tan Dick Tham taking off his coat and walking from the garage into the house. I was standing on the stairs before I could avoid him. He looked up. Our eyes met. I was about to lower my head like usual, but this time he said, "Don't lower your head, I didn't do anything wrong." I pursed my lips. My throat was dry. He walked closer, stopped at the bottom of the stairs, and looked straight at me. "Do you have anything to ask?" I hesitated about it. "Sister story?" He nodded, then asked, "I used to like her?" He didn't answer immediately. I felt so rude. I was about to back out when he said, "I thought I liked him." I looked up. He looked at me and continued slowly. It wasn't until you walked down the aisle and kissed her that I realized what had happened before was a mistake. I didn't stay still. I didn't know how to feel. I just knew that my heart was really pounding. That night, I didn't fall asleep right away. I lay in my room, listening to the gentle wind blowing outside the balcony. My phone lit up again. A message from Ching Yi-zen. "Do you want to go for a walk tomorrow? There's a flower path here that I think you'll like." I stared at the screen. Then my fingers gently typed what time it was. The message was sent in less than a minute, and I received a 7-song reply. "I'll be waiting at the gate." I turned off my phone and buried my face in the pillow, my heart no longer listening. At 7 a.m., I stood in front of the villa's gate. Ching Yi-zen was already waiting, leaning lightly against the car, his hands in his pockets. His white shirt and gray jeans were simple, but made me feel that he didn't look like a businessman at all, but rather like the male lead from a manhwa that fans are so infatuated. "I thought you couldn't get up at this hour." I joked, though inside I was shaking a little. He glanced at me, slightly curled his lips. "Waiting for me, I can wake up at any time." I slipped, "Sorry. Who gave you permission to shoot me in the heart this early in the morning?" "The flower path you mentioned is a small path behind the house. On both sides are shaded trees, green grass, and wildflowers growing close to the path. There are also a few neatly trimmed lavender bushes, giving off a gentle fragrance in the early morning breeze." I walked slowly, and he wasn't in a hurry. Each step kept just enough distance so I wouldn't feel pressured, but still close enough to feel his breath and steady presence beside me. "This place is so peaceful," I said, looking at the trees ahead. "I know you are not used to noisy places." I turned around. He knew he wasn't looking at me, but his voice was very calm. Once I saw her standing at a birthday party, covering her ears, clearly uncomfortable but still trying to smile. "I kept you. At that time, I had never met you." "Yeah, but when I saw you, I didn't know when I stopped." The wind blew through my hair. The space suddenly became silent. It turned out he had known me before. Not after the wedding, not since the day my sister ran away, but long before that. I asked softly, "How many times have you met me?" Tan Dick Tham tilted his head slightly as if he was remembering. Then he said 5 times at events, 2 times at the mall, once at a charity auction, and 3 times he saw me close enough to realize I didn't look like my sister. I opened my mouth and was speechless, feeling like I was playing a role in a drama of accidental doubles. But by the 3rd scene, I discovered that the director was actually a longtime Die-Hard fan. After the walk, I returned to my room with a slightly hazy mind, thinking about the sentence "I saw you" and ignored lunch. In the afternoon, I sat cleaning up the pile of books in the small study that he said I could use freely. While pulling the drawer, I found an old wooden box placed neatly in the bottom compartment. I hesitated for a second. No lock, no name. Curiosity wins over reason. I opened it. Inside was a photo of me in high school, standing in front of the school gate, wearing a white shirt, hair tied up, holding a glass of soy milk, smiling at someone outside the frame. I was speechless, not because of the photo, but because I know for a fact that I never sent it to anyone. It is a photo taken secretly by someone else, but is harmless. There were a few other things, a notebook out, in which were written notes about, I don't read books. I'm allergic to them. I hate spicy food. I'm afraid of the dark. I can't drink strong coffee. It's all about me. Footsteps echoed from the hallway. I startled, closed the box, and quickly stuffed it back in its original place. Tondik Thumb walked in, his eyes looking at me, who was panting, hands shaking, face red. What's wrong? I bit my lip and pretended to bend down to clean up the books. Nothing, just bumped into the edge of the table. He stepped closer, squatted down, and rolled up my sleeve. It's a little red there, where I hit the edge of the table in my panic. I don't know anything about myself, he said softly. Then he took a small bottle of cream from his pocket and applied it to the red mark on my hand. His fingers were cold, but his movements were so gentle that it made me want to cry. Don't clean your room tomorrow. If you want to read something, let me bring it up. I looked at him, intending to ask, but then swallowed it back, not knowing where to start. Ask why you keep my picture? Ask why he silently remembers everything about me? Ask why he knew me for a long time but still kept quiet until the wedding day? Or ask why the way he looks at me now is like he has been waiting for this moment for a long time. That night, I lay in bed, my back to the window, eyes wide open looking at the nightlight. I don't know if this can be called a body double anymore, when that person from beginning to end only looks at you. Before I went to sleep, I received a text message with a picture of a dozen small silver necklaces with turquoise teardrop-shaped pendants. I gave it to you before because I saw you liked it, but there wasn't enough reason to give it to you. I clearly remember that time. At the auction, I stood looking at the bracelet for quite a while, but because it was too expensive, I just smiled and left. No one paid attention to that, besides him. I looked at the picture of the bracelet. Here? The emotions were hard to name, but then I still texted back, the reason now? A minute later, he replied, because I am his wife. The next day, I received a silk invitation neatly placed on the breakfast table. Tondik Thumb was still sitting there, black coffee in hand, white shirt unbuttoned at the collar, looking both lazy and extremely sexy, the type of man that makes people forgive even sins, always occupying the middle seat of their heart. I picked up the invitation and looked at the embossed words, Private Dinner, Circle of Honor. A familiar event for the tycoons, gathering prominent people in the investment world, even politics and media. I looked up. He was going to take me with him. Yes. A short, concise word with extremely deep translation frequency. Do I need to prepare anything? Are not. 7 p.m. car pickup. Everything is arranged. I didn't ask any more questions, but my mind was already racing. Are you really going to make your marriage public? That afternoon, a whole team of stylists came to the villa. They brought nearly 20 dresses, shoes, bags, and accessories. The housekeeper said briefly, the young master said he wanted her to wear whatever she felt most comfortable in. It took me 30 minutes to choose. I ended up choosing a knee-length champagne silk dress that was simple yet elegant, hugging just enough without being too revealing. Light makeup, wavy hair, add a pair of cute earrings. When I walked down the hall, Tondik Thumb was already waiting. The black taxi coat with velvet flaps was so stylish that it made me want to turn around and run away. He looked at me from head to toe. His eyes had no expression. I bowed my head instinctively. Is it too much of a loss? He didn't answer, just held out his hand, his voice low and hoarse. Come on, I'll be the center of attention today. I took his hand, my heart beating so fast it felt like I had left my brain in the makeup room. The party was held in a rooftop banquet hall. Soft yellow light, wine shimmering in the glass. The classical music was playing at a moderate volume. As soon as we entered, everyone's eyes turned this way. People started whispering. I heard a few words clearly. President Chin's new wife? Wasn't the young lady of the Su family originally planning to marry him? She looks younger, not like a young lady from a noble family. I squeezed his hand instinctively. Tondik Thumb stopped. I looked up, met his slanted eyes, slightly frowned, slightly annoyed. He let go of my hand and changed to holding my waist.
I keep people. He leaned close to my ear and said very softly, "Don't be afraid. You don't need to be a foil for anyone tonight." During the whole party, Tondik Thumb did not leave me more than 5 steps away. No matter how many people started talking to him, he always tilted his head to ask if I wanted to leave, if I was tired, if I was hungry. I was like a private VIP, and he was the Kim bodyguard, butler, and looked devoted level max. In my free time, I unconsciously took a glass of champagne and went out to the small balcony to breathe some air. Just outside, heard a familiar laughter. I turned back to Tonya Jung, my sister. I stood still for a second, my hands clenched. She is still beautiful, still outstanding, still confident as ever. But the way she looked at me was strange. "I didn't expect this style to look so good on you." She smiled lightly, her voice half joking, half sarcastic. I did not answer. She moved closer. Did he know who I was? I slightly curled my lips. "What do you think?" She was silent. A second later, I heard a familiar male voice behind me. "To you?" I turned my head and it was Tondik Thumb. His face was a few degrees colder than usual, but his eyes softened as he looked at me. He stepped in between me and my sister and turned to her, calmly saying, "Thanks for not showing up at the wedding. It was only because of that I was able to marry the right person." I opened my eyes wide open and Tonya Jung turned pale. Tondik Thumb continued, "Remember, no matter what, don't get confused. I married her because I chose her. No one can replace. I feel like my brain has just been pumped with 80 milliliters of pure sugar." Tonya Jung tightened her purse and turned away without saying another word. That night on the way home, I sat in the passenger seat holding my phone, but my mind was blank. Tondik Thumb still looked at the road, his voice as deep as ever. "Are you tired today?" I shook my head. "You talking to her like that will make others feel awkward." "I don't mind." I smiled slightly. "Don't you always do everything for fame?" He glanced at me and said it like it was true. "Also true. I want everyone to know clearly that the person I choose is you." My heart beat strangely again. Before entering the bedroom, I received a small box from the housekeeper. Inside was the turquoise necklace he had sent a photo of. "Attach a small note, no special occasion needed, just whatever you like." I hugged the ring and bit my lip. Dead. I think I'm falling in love with my contract husband. After that party, Tondik Thumb was much more busy. He leaves early and comes home late. I only see him twice a day. Once when I came down for breakfast, and once when the lights were off in my room but the sound of his footsteps still echoed through the hallway. I told myself that normally in a contract marriage, who would have the time to stick around? But I also discovered one thing since that party. No one calls me a stand-in anymore. No one dares. Because Tondik Thumb used his presence to clearly declare. That afternoon, I followed the butler to the private restaurant in the villa, which was used to entertain intimate guests. The butler said, "The young master told the madam to have dinner here tonight. There are regular guests." I didn't think much of it. It's not strange to change the place to eat. Until the door opened and the person sitting at the dining table was Cho Yen, a name that was once associated with Tondik Thumb's past. The school goddess, rumored ex-lover during his time studying in Europe. Chow Yen didn't seem like the cold beauty type. She was beautiful in a sharp, intelligent, well-spoken way, just the kind that fit into his world. I stopped. Chow Yen smiled and stood up. "Is that you? Sue, right?" I nodded slightly. "I've seen your pictures, but you're even prettier in real life." I didn't know what to say. The atmosphere was a bit awkward, and it became even more awkward when Chin Yi-sin appeared a few minutes later. He walked in, unbuttoning his sleeves as he asked, "Sorry, I got stuck in traffic." His eyes swept over me, paused for a half second, and then turned to Chow Yen. "I didn't expect you still remembered the way here." Chow Yen smiled lightly. "I remember very clearly." I'd been here a few times before, and the words seemed to have a thorn in them. I kept quiet, lowering my head to drink water. During the meal, I didn't say much. Zhao Yan mostly talked, and Qing Qi occasionally responded with a polite sentence or two. I had the feeling that she was trying to rekindle the old connection with her words, her eyes, or simply the way she held her wine glass and tilted it towards him every time we clinked glasses. I lowered my head and put vegetables in my bowl to eat as if we were in an international silent eating competition. Then when I stood up to leave, Hygiene, Tiu Yen, suddenly asked disapprovingly, "Do you know? That year the person invited to Paris with Tan Dickthom was you, not my sister." I froze. She smiled. "I didn't mean anything by it, it's just that fate is strange. In the end, you were the one who married him." I didn't answer, just turned and walked away, but my chest was tight. When I turned back, the two were still talking. I don't know who mentioned the old story. I only heard vaguely, "Can someone like you love anyone?" And at that moment, I saw your eyes. Tan Dickthom turned his head to look at me, clearly, frankly, and purposefully. He said, "Maybe. I am in love." I paused, my heart skipped a beat. He looked at me for a few seconds and then laughed. "I didn't expect you to say that in front of me." Tan Dickthom did not answer, just turned to me, his voice much softer. "Are you done eating? Come home with me." On the way back, the car was as quiet as usual. I sat up straight, eyes looking straight, but inside I was in turmoil. I didn't mean to ask, but in the end, I couldn't help it. "Is she an ex?" He didn't turn, just frowned. "She thinks so." I nodded. "Did you ever like her?" He stopped the car right on the side of the road. No lights, no people, just his low voice in the dark. He didn't like being compared. I bit my lip. "I'm sorry." He still didn't look at me, but after a while he exhaled, tilting his face back. "Do you think you are inferior to others?" I did not answer. I can't lie. He took my hand. This time his eyes did not avoid or hide. "Tiyuet, he never put anyone else in that position in the first place. If I wanted someone else, do you think you could be sitting here today? I keep people." He continued. "He was a very selective person. No one can replace you and no one can compare to you because they were never my standard." My heart melted in my chest. I looked at him, wanting to ask something more, but he held my hand tighter. "Don't let anyone make you doubt yourself, because you are mine." That night when I got back to my room, I looked at the mirror for a long time. The girl in the mirror is not radiant, not good at communication, not shining like Chow Yen, but there was one man who not only knew who she was, but never wanted to trade her for anyone else. I smiled, so softly that only I could hear it. I dreamed of a summer afternoon. In that dream, I was running in the pouring rain, my canvas shoes soaked, my hair stuck to my forehead. I was lost, my hands shaking as I held the water-stained map, panicking to the point of wanting to cry. Then a hand came out and a very soft voice said, "Don't cry, I'll take you home." I woke up with a start, my heart still beating fast. On the palm of my hand were marks of my fingernails digging into my skin, a familiar reflex whenever I had a nightmare. But the strange thing is that I have never remembered that dream before. The next morning, I went downstairs to the dining room. Tan Dickthom was already sitting at the table early. He was reading the newspaper and had not yet had a sip of coffee. A Trenchu stood next to the chair, not sitting down yet. He looked up at me. "What's up?" "Swollen eyes." I sat down. Lingy replied, "Just a dream." "About what?" I shook my head, not quite sure. I just remember it was raining and I got lost. "Someone take me home." He said nothing more, but I saw his fingers pause on the edge of his coffee cup. I went to the study at noon. There was something I wanted to check again. I opened the old wooden box in the drawer where I had found my photo in his notebook. This time I paid more attention. At the end of the book, there was a small, old, blurry photo that looked like it was taken with a very low-end phone. In the photo is me, in middle school, eyes red, standing next to a black umbrella, wearing a wet uniform, holding a pack of tissues. Next to me was a blurry boy. His face turned sideways, but his figure was very tall and strong. I kept the person. I don't remember that time. No. That afternoon, I waited until he came home. As soon as he took off his coat, I stood blocking the way up the stairs. He looked at me and frowned slightly. "What's up?" I held the photo in my hand. "Is the first time we met?" He was silent for a few seconds and then nodded. "Right." I sat down on the sofa, my heart in turmoil. Why can't I remember anything? At that time, I had a slight fever. Went home and lay down for 3 days. I keep the person you remember so clearly. Why do you keep this photo? He sat down on the opposite chair, clasping his hands together, his eyes slightly darkened. Because after that day, I never saw you again, but that image never disappeared from my mind. I bit my lip. Just because I cried in the rain, you remembered me for years? He chuckled. Not because I was crying, but because I was still trying not to cry. I was startled. He looked at me, his eyes softer than ever. I thought it was just a fleeting moment. But the older he gets, the more places he goes, the more people he meets, the more certain he becomes. That feeling that year was not temporary. Why didn't you come to me? At that time, I transferred to school. I will always stand behind you. I don't go on stage. I don't go to the media. I just know you exist, but can't find you. I was speechless until my sister suddenly ran away. No. He looked at me and knew who I was before. I know, and I chose not to marry you. I felt like a string had just been released from my chest. All doubts, insecurities, questions about whether I was a substitute disappeared. It turns out that the person who entered his life was not an accident and was not pushed to replace her, but because he had been silently waiting for her for a long time. That night, he stood in front of my door holding the turquoise necklace, the other one of the pair I had seen you looking at. He didn't say much, just bent down and put it on me for himself. The lock gently touches the neck. The first time I met you, it was raining. You were standing alone, no umbrella, no raincoat, and no one called you home. This time, if you get lost again, I will not let you stand alone again. I looked at him, nodded, very softly. No words of love were spoken, but my heart was already leaning towards him. That day, it wasn't raining heavily, just a light drizzle, like mist, but enough to make people feel a little cold and a little distant. I stood in the King family library, holding the turquoise necklace around my neck, feeling like I had just opened an old door covered in the dust of time. Inside is a man who has silently kept his image in his heart for many years. Tan Dick Ham is in the office. I heard his voice on the phone, calm and composed, but after each decisive sentence, there was an unusual silence. I know you are not comfortable today, not because of me, but because of your family. This morning, someone sent an invitation to the villa for the 60th birthday party of his grandfather, the founder of Tan Tea, who was also the one who forced him to get engaged to my sister in the first place. For the first time since the wedding, Tan Dick Ham had to bring me home to officially introduce me to the Tan family. The pressure is light. He didn't force me to go, but I know if I don't go, no one will defend him, and no one will believe I'm the chosen one. I knocked lightly on the study door. "Come in." His voice was the same, but when he saw me enter, his eyes softened immediately. I walked over, put the cup of ginger tea on the table, sat down on the opposite chair, and said softly, "Tomorrow, you go with me." He paused, his eyes deepening a bit. No need to force it. It's not forced. I smiled lightly. I also want to see those who once thought I was unworthy and then were forced to acknowledge me. Tan Dick Ham did not say anything, just looked at me for a long time and then nodded slightly. "Let me take you tomorrow." The rain had not stopped at night. I sat reading a book in the living room, listening to the sound of the rain falling through the glass door. My mood was strangely calm. The lights in the room weren't on, only the soft yellow light falling from the corner of the wall made the space look warm, like a painting. I was flipping to the last page when Tan Dick Tham walked in. He held a towel in his hand, still a little damp because he hadn't had time to dry it. "Don't sit by the glass door for too long, you'll get cold." He handed me the towel. I accepted it. "Take." Tiny voice, "Are you really drying my towel?" "Yes. So am I the only one who has ever been served like that?" He looked at me without answering, just smiled. "I know what you're gonna say. What? I have no precedent, but since you came, everything has become an exception. I was just kidding, but I didn't expect you to reply. I didn't mean to say that. But it is true. I was startled. My heart skipped a beat. I took the towel to wipe my hands. Tomorrow will be tiring. I had not finished my sentence when I felt him sitting down next to me. The distance between the two people is shorter than usual. He didn't touch me, didn't touch my hand, didn't make any gesture that crossed the line. But the way he looked at me was different from usual. Very quiet. It was as if all the emotions inside him were stagnating behind those eyes, just waiting for the right moment to burst out. I asked softly, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Tandiktham slowly raised his hand, his fingers lightly touched my cheek, wiping away a remaining drop of rain. Because he was afraid he couldn't keep that look for long. What look? The look when looking at the person you like but not sure if that person allows it. My heart kills again. So what if I let you? He was stunned. I don't run away anymore. Can I kiss you? He did not answer, just bend down slowly. Very slow, very light, as if I just blinked, the moment would disappear. And then his lips touched mine. Not rushed, not burning, but gentle enough to make my tears almost flow. He kissed me as if he were holding something precious and fragile, as if waiting for this moment for so long that he didn't dare to do it too hard, didn't dare to let clumsiness ruin the feeling. When he pulled away, his lips were still grazing the corner of mine. The first time I dreamed of you was also on a rainy night like this. He spoke softly, his voice hoarse. I rubbed my face against his shoulder, listening to the news pounding in my chest. So do you still dream about me? He squeezed my shoulder lightly. No need to dream anymore because I'm here. Now, I slept very well that night. In my dream, I met the rain of that year again, but this time I did not lose my way, did not tremble at the strange crossroads, because someone was waiting for me under a black umbrella, smiling and saying, "Let's go home." I used to think that loving someone was a matter of the heart, but with Tandiktham, I just learned that there are people who love you with your mind, actions, time, and things that you never thought anyone would care about. Early that morning, I woke up to the sweet smell of waffles wafting downstairs. I'm not a picky eater, but there's one thing I always crave when I'm in a good mood: ice cream waffle. The problem is I never told anyone, let alone did it at home. I finished washing my face and walked downstairs to see him standing in front of the kitchen counter wearing a suit. I froze for 5 seconds. It's not because he's cooking, but because of the way he looks. White shirt with rolled up sleeves, slightly messy hair, focused expression, looking completely unlike a CEO, but more like a real husband. Seeing me standing still, he glanced at me. "You're awake? Come here and try some." I walked closer and looked at the waffles that were evenly baked, crispy and light, with a wide golden crust. I asked, "When did you learn this?" He chuckled, "A long time ago. But I just made it today." "For you." "Yeah." The word "yeah" made me want to put the waffle away to take photos. In the afternoon, I went with him to the flower shop, not to buy flowers for anyone, but to choose the flowers to plant in the garden behind the villa. I thought he was just doing it for the sake of it, but who would have thought that Tandiktham, he was really distinguishing between baby's breath and aster? He glanced because one of these two species was the one I stopped at for a long time when I passed by the flower shop last year. I wondered, "What? Do you have a chip that locates my brain from last year?" I looked up at him half-jokingly. "Do you think you're going a bit too far?" He replied in a very serious tone, "I'm in love with you. If that's too much, then I won't limit it anymore." I was stunned for 3 seconds, then blushed all the way to my ears. That evening, I took the initiative to pour him tea. My favorite tea is white tea, but I once told the staff to make me black tea because if I drink something too light, I won't be able to sleep. I remember, and the first time I wanted to do something for him first. "Do you have a big meeting tomorrow?" I asked as I handed him the cup of tea. He looked at me, the corners of his lips slightly raised. "The first time you asked for my schedule. Can't you see I'm taking care of you?" He looked at me, his eyes narrowed meaningfully. "Are you starting to get jealous?" I choke on nothing because of this morning's incident. The girl in the elevator. I didn't say anything, but I kept quiet after she smiled at him. I pursed my lips to protest, but it was true. A little guilty. "What about you?" I turned to a slightly shaky voice. "Have you ever been jealous?" He sipped tea and spoke calmly. "Have?" I was stunned. The time I complimented the main lead in the movie I was watching, he was very handsome and trustworthy like someone else's husband. That night, I lost 2 hours of sleep wondering if I should buy a suit like his. I covered my face. "Oh my God, he's really sick." "Yes." He put down his teacup and looked at me intently. Sick, and you are the only reason. At that moment, I knew that I was not simply moved anymore, but truly in love with him. Not because I love him because he is gentle, not because he is infatuated, and not because he is handsome in a suit like a male god from a movie, but because when I am with him, I don't have to try to make myself better, more beautiful, more talented to be worthy of someone. I just need to be myself, and you knew that before I did. Late at night, when I went back to my room, he sent me a short message asking if I could call him husband tomorrow. I looked at that line, and a chorus of urgent cries rang out in my head. I type, "You try calling tomorrow." He replied, "Then today you just dream first." I put the phone face down on my chest, hearing the news pounding like it was during the college entrance exam. I don't know since when I stopped being afraid of being a replacement, because every time he looked at me, his eyes were never vague. That morning, I woke up to the sound of the phone ringing incessantly. It was the butler calling, his voice more worried than usual. "Madam, can you please not open social media this morning?" I frowned. "What's the matter?" He hesitated for a few seconds, and then sighed. "Someone posted, 'You're not the real bride at the young master's wedding?'" I jumped out of bed, opened my phone. My heart almost fell out when I read the title of the search for the Chin family's substitute bride. Below were a series of posts with similar content. Sue Ya Wrong sister, the substitute in the 100 billion marriage. At that year's wedding, the real bride had disappeared. Was Chin Yi-sen fooled? I clenched the phone in my hand. The wind in my chest felt like it was blocked. I knew this day would come. Sooner or later, the past would be dug up like an old box hidden underground. One day, someone would step on it. But I didn't expect it to come so quickly. And just as I was starting to be truly happy, I was about to leave the room when Shin Yi-sen pushed the door open and walked in. He didn't seem panicked nor angry, just that his face was unusually cold. "I know." I asked, "Just this morning, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Will this affect you?" I looked up and met his eyes. "Aren't you afraid?" "You're afraid I'm afraid." His voice dropped, but he didn't care. My phone continued to vibrate, a message from an unexpected person. "My sister, Sue Ya Wrong. I'm sorry, I didn't do it, but it seems like someone from the Chin family intentionally released." One sentence was enough to make my heart sink. I looked at Chin Yi-shin. Did his family not accept me? He didn't answer, but that silence was 1,000 times more painful than a refusal. That afternoon, I asked for permission to go out. He wanted to go with me, but I shook my head. I needed time to think. It wasn't because I wanted to leave, but I was afraid that if I continued to stay, it would only make things more difficult for him. The media, family, and the eyes of the world, I could bear it all, but I didn't want him to sacrifice too much for someone whose name wasn't on the wedding invitation. I wandered around for a while and then went straight to the airport. I bought a ticket for the nearest flight, not caring where it was going, just knowing that I needed to disappear from the radar long enough for the storm to pass. I was sitting in the waiting room when the phone rang. Ton Diktham's horoscope. I did not pick up the phone. A text message came right after that. "If you get on the plane, I'll make the whole world come looking for you." I clutched the phone, my heart trembling. Next is another message. "Stand up and go back to the main door." I turned my head around, bewildered. At the airport gate, amidst the jostling crowd, a man in a black short was walking against the flow of people, his searching gaze so intense that no one dared to block his way. I stood up. A few seconds later, he walked in front of me, didn't say a word, just hugged me tightly. Amidst all the gazes, amidst the airport loudspeakers, amidst the chaos of rumors, I only heard his voice very softly in my ear. "Tuyet, don't go anywhere." I want to cry, but I can't cry. I just nodded like a child found after being lost. He took my hand and led me out of the crowd to his car parked outside the gate. On the way back, I asked softly, "Aren't you afraid of losing face with your family?" "I'm not afraid of losing you." I turned to see him gripping the steering wheel, and his grandfather had called him, asking him for a divorce. I was speechless. He continued, "If you force me to divorce, then hold a funeral for my name on the family tree first." I looked at him and couldn't say anything. I just felt my nose sting, and my heart felt like it was about to break from too much pain. That night, he took me back to the villa. No one bothered me anymore. No newspapers, no media, just the two of us, and a story that was enough to call love. I sat on the chair. He made tea like usual, but instead of sitting across from me, he pulled the chair close to me. Tomorrow he will take you to the Tan family's house. What am I surprised about? Introduce me properly to them. I smile sadly. To you, you are a stain to me. He squeezed my hand. I am wife. Real wife. That night, I opened my phone to reply to the unsent message from this afternoon. Even if the whole world says I'm wrong, as long as you believe I'm right, I'll stay. He replied very quickly, so stay here forever. That morning, I wore an elegant white dress, stood in front of the mirror adjusting my earrings, my palms warm with tension. Tondik Thom walked in from behind, saw me fumbling with my sleeves, so he bent down to help me button each button. You've never brought anyone home like this before, have you? I asked, half joking, half serious. He nodded, without hesitation, never and never intends to bring anyone else but me. I looked up at him. In his eyes there was only me, no regrets, no wavering, no hesitation. For the first time I felt that loving someone could really give me the courage to face the world. The Tan family's house is located on the top of a hill in the west of the city. The 3-story ancient villa has a Western architecture mixed with a touch of ancient royal style, exuding authority from the gate to the sofa. As soon as I entered, I felt a row of eyes scanning my way like a flashlight examining luggage. Tondik Thom didn't say anything, just held my hand tightly and led me step by step into the middle of the hall, as if he was making an announcement. This person is my wife. The first person to speak was a middle-aged woman, his mother, Mrs. Tan. Unlike her son's calm demeanor, she was sharp, cold, and very unhappy. Niece? She looked me up and down. I will marry someone else. Do you feel guilty? Before I could answer, Tondik Thom spoke first. If you intend to use that attitude, don't call her granddaughter-in-law, just call her wife. The room was silent. I squeezed his hand under the table, but he neither let go nor withdrew. Who is the girl? Everyone here knows where he came from, Mrs. Tan said, her eyes sharp as knives. If you want to continue to be forced into a wedding by Damtao for another girl, then go ahead. So let me be clear. He stood up, his voice low. She doesn't replace anyone. The person I wanted to marry from beginning to end was never To Ya Jung. The air seemed to thicken. His grandfather sat at the head of the table, leaning on his cane and tapping the floor. Dick Thom, you should know that the Tan family's honor is not something to joke about with personal feelings. I'm not kidding, he replied, but I also don't let my wife be the subject of gossip anymore. A wife's voice rang from outside the door. All eyes turned back. To Ya Jung. She walked in, wearing a striking red dress, with meticulous makeup, as if she had prepared for a long time to regain her position. I don't think a family launch is complete without a designated starter. She looked at me, half smiling. I didn't react to her, just looked at her calmly. She turned to Tondik Thom. What do you think this is about? A game? Are you really going to marry the person who was your body double? Tondik Thom did not respond to her immediately. He just slowly stood up, walked towards me, and took my hand again. Not that I planned to get married. I got married. And the person I love is her. To Ya Jung turned pale. He loves her. What do you think I do all this for? He asked back. From the beginning, the person he was looking for was To Ya Jue. It's not me. I'm just the chosen one because my family wants to use me for their own benefit. She laughed, but what about her? She is just a commodity that is put up for sale. I stood up. For the first time, I looked straight at my sister, not bowing my head, not avoiding, not trying to hide. You're right, I was a replacement, but I never took anything from you. You ran away, I was pushed up, you have a choice. I don't. This feeling, this marriage, I won't steal. I will only stay when I know the person beside me is sincere. The room fell into silence. After a long while, his grandfather nodded. I never thought that my most indifferent grandson would be the one who would dare to do everything for his feelings. Then he turned to me and slowly said, If he has chosen you, from today on you are a member of the Tan family. I lowered my head, my eyes stinging. Tondik Thom held my hand tighter, lowered his head and whispered in my ear, I told you so. Whoever doesn't accept you, I will force them to accept you. When we got to the car, I leaned on his shoulder and whispered, I thought today was a battle, but it was a battle, but you won." He chuckled. "No, I was just protecting my spoils. You are the only reward I want to keep for the rest of my life." One morning in May, the sun poured down like slowly poured honey. I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my pure white wedding dress for the third time. Not too elaborate, not studded with sparkling stones, just a simple, soft, and well-fitting dress like our relationship. Not ostentatious, not pretentious, but warm enough for me to want to keep for the rest of my life. This time, no one forced me to wear it. No one told me to look like my sister. No one forced me to write my name. I was the real bride, the chosen one, the only one he held hands with as he walked down the aisle. Tandik Thom chose to hold a small wedding in the garden behind our villa. There were white baby flowers, a long banquet table under fairy lights, and a violin playing the canon that I had said I wanted to hear once at my wedding. No need to be ostentatious, just the person I love and those who truly wished me well. I walked out of the dressing room, listening to my heart pounding as I walked. At the end of the flower-carpeted path, there he stood, white suit, light gray tie, and eyes that had never looked at anyone but me. As the priest read the verse, "Today, before everyone's eyes, two people chose to be together," I turned my head slightly to look at him.
Tandik Thom held my hand tightly, not for the first time, but this time there was a ring on my ring finger, a sincere promise and recognition from all those who had doubted. "Tuyet, will you marry me?" I looked at him, the corners of my lips slightly curved. "Last time you were forced. This time I gently squeezed your hand and volunteered." When the wedding ceremony ended, everyone stood up, clapped and tossed flowers and chanted in all sorts of ways, from sweet to joking. I was pulled back by a friend. You know what? When he walked out, President Tandik Thom smiled like a child who had just received his first candy. I turned to look at him, and at that moment, he looked at me too. The way his eyes softened, his mouth curved slightly, as if the rest of the world no longer mattered. I suddenly thought, it turns out that true love can make a calm person like him so foolish. That evening, he and I sat in the deserted garden. No colored lights, no music, just the quiet moonlight and a few stray fireflies. I leaned my head on his shoulder and whispered, "Do you remember the day I got married instead?" "Yes," he replied. "At that time, I thought my life was about to act out a television tragedy." "So what about now?" I turned to look at him, smiling lightly. "I thought the military drama was written in the wrong genre, but it turned out to be a romance." He tilted his head and kissed me lightly on the forehead. It wasn't the wrong genre. It was just that now he got to the bowing part. From now on, it was a special part written just for me. We didn't organize a grand honeymoon. Instead, he took time off work to go with me to a small town by the sea, the place that used to be my escape. If life was too tiring there, he learned how to go to the market and cook, and even rode his bike with me to the fish market at 5 in the morning to choose fresh shrimp. I asked him, wouldn't it be unsightly for a CEO to have to compete with the vendor for fish? He replied, as long as you eat well, that's fine. You can still compete for the next time. One afternoon, I sat writing on the porch of the motel, listening to the sound of the waves in the distance, feeling so peaceful that I had never fallen into a scandal, never been called a replacement, never trembled when entering a wedding that was not mine. There was only me and the love I chose. A moment later, he brought a glass of lemonade and placed it next to me. Know something? Tell me about someone. I raised my head and smiled mischievously. About a girl who was pushed down the aisle to replace her sister. Who would have thought I would meet the husband who wanted to marry her for life? Tandik Thom sat down next to me, folded his arms, and listened. What did he think he should name her? He pondered for a moment and then said softly, marrying for the second time, this time because of love. I laughed.
He held my hand, kissed the back of my hand lightly, and every time he only wanted to marry one person, and you were the only one he wanted to keep by his side. Finally, I understood why people say that not everyone who enters your life first is the right person, but the one who stays last, holding your hand through everything, is true destiny. Thank you, Mr. Tan Dick Thumb, for choosing me from the beginning and never choosing again.